Gibson lost the room to hold it over his head. The black that flooded through the tunnel, even as the ghostly spots of light left on his retinas by the firelight, still bobbed and waved before Isaac was like darkness one finds in between dreams. "Hey!" he cried out, "hey!" He held one hand up and out of the water, almost slowing himself down by dragging it along the ceiling just in front of him. Isaac prayed there were no stalactites down here. He could hear the voices of his friends up ahead, farther away than he would have liked, their words indistinguishable, hollow echoes. "Hey!" he tried again. There was a sound from not too far behind, covered, swimming. There must be other feeders into the stream, Ron gasped. It's picking up speed. God damn, I've always hated the idea of drowning. I don't want to drown. I almost drowned once when I was a kid. We're not going to drown, are we? Hey, did your foo-foo answer prayers? No. Too bad. We could use the ear of a not-too-busy God about now. I'm an atheist. Even now, I admire you, kid. You? I've got an angel watching over me, a redhead. I've been told she'll protect me. You don't really believe that, do you? Not until about 10 minutes ago. With the way things are going, we might find out if there's God together. Bob called back to them. You fellas all right? What's going on? Isaac yelled back. The tunnel's narrowing. Thank you, oh master of the obvious, Ron answered. The waters rushed them forward. Do you hear that? Isaac asked. What? It sounds like a rumbling, like a subway. You don't think we're near the subway, do you? There's something else, something up ahead. Light, Isaac cried. I see light. Indeed, far ahead the black seemed to give way to a lesser gray. Bob? But there was no answer. The sounds he had mistaken for the presence of the subway began to grow into a roar, even as the waters grew choppier. He was positive that if he could see, there would be whitecaps. Damn, Ron hissed, sounding farther away again. The gray-green glow suffused from what appeared to be the tunnel's end, but it could be by no means be misconstrued for daylight. The distant, seemingly round opening was bisected neatly in two, the upper part illuminated, the lower dark with water. He could see the bobbing heads of his friends as they struggled to navigate the cave. Isaac tried to find a hold on the right hand wall of the tunnel, his fingertips scraping against the rough surface as they slowed him down a little bit. Typing was going to hurt for a few days if he lived. In spite of his situation, he had to smile a little. Some part of him actually thought he might survive. An instant later, the impact of Ron's body colliding with his knocked the last bit of good humor from him. Together, they tumbled back into the stream. As Isaac surfaced, he heard voices shouting, unsure of the direction. There was water in his eyes and his ears. A hand clutched at the collar of his jacket, pulling him to the wall. The water foamed and leaped around him. His grasping hands, alive and on their own at the ends of his numb arms, found something solid, metal, and closed around it tightly, involuntarily. His feet sailed along behind him, pulled by the current flow, but his grip held. I've got you, Ike, Bob's voice. Calm, reassuring, close. Isaac opened his eyes. Mere feet from the craggy gap, he was holding on to a metal pipe. Iron or copper, it was held in place by rungs of great brackets, which rose up through a wide hole cut into the ceiling. He looked up and could see Walter and Sprague managing to make their way up the pipe and disappearing into darkness. Bob clung to the first rung above the water, holding onto the pipe with one hand and Isaac with the other. You hold on to the pipe, Bob said. I've got to let go. He nodded. Bob suddenly extended himself as far as he could, splashing into the water, simultaneously tackling and snagging Ron. Behind him, a repetitive, heavy thud. Isaac turned from watching Bob reel in Hubbard to see the Tesla case knocking perilously at the stream terminus, trapped against the lip of the opening, caught in a swirling vortex only about 3 feet away from him. The trunk, he shouted. Forget it, Sprague hollered back from somewhere up above. He could reach it. Bob had just pulled Ron to the pipe as Isaac launched himself toward the case. He heard both men calling his name, but the water flung him toward the opening with a speed that made him feel as if he were flying, hurtling into orbit around an alien planet. Both arms flung out in a reflex motion, feeling the narrow wall on either side. His forward momentum was frightening. With a heavy thud, his chest, unprotected by his arms, struck the trunk, knocking an ugly, desperate grunt from his throat. Jarred loose, the trunk tottered for a second. He reached for it, his fingers touching the leather, before it shot suddenly through the opening, like a piece of spaghetti being sucked into a person's lip. 1 second it was there, and the next it was gone. Like the proverbial cork out of a bottle, the water surged forward, drawing Isaac along. Spread eagle, he braced himself against the opening as his head was forced through. Beyond the gap, he watched in horror as their prize, pinwheeling end over end, dropped through a curtain of water and air far beyond his reach, until it finally crashed onto the rocks, poking through the small, churning pool of white foam dozens of yards below. Wires, glass, and gears scattered every which way. What was left of the case itself then floated half-heartedly into the stream that flowed away toward the far side of a great cavern, for that's what he was peering into, before submerging once and for all beneath the dark waves. For a long moment, Isaac remained suspended against the opening, peering into the vast, subterranean chamber, the walls and ceilings coated with some kind of phosphorescent luminescent glow. Here were stalactites and stalagmites, great growths of colored crystals and spatterings of glittering ore woven through fields of oversized fungi. He was yanked back into darkness and cold. Bob and Ron had him, commanding him to kick, swim, and fight for his life. He grabbed the pipe again, the vision of the cavern still in full flower before his eyes. The case, he coughed after a moment. It's lost. You shouldn't have gone after it, Bob yelled at him. I was going to get it. Leave him alone, Bob, Ron said, breathing heavily. Suddenly light, like those nearly divine shafts of light one sees driving across farm country when they cut through distant clouds, fell upon them. Thank you, Walter B. Gibson, Bob sighed. Okay, up you go. Isaac climbed the rungs up the pipe as if they were a ladder. He could feel the vibration of water flowing up the tube. The hole he climbed through was rough-hewn, drilled out quickly in order to drop a pipe and anchor it, but not suited for regular maintenance. It grew wider like an inverted cone, indicating that the people who dug this had run out of the patience required to maintain its consistency. Bob and Ron were below him. He looked up and could see the substructure of an old building, planks, mortar, hardwood, then a hole above, hands reaching for him, drawing him up, helping him to his feet in the concrete floor. That they were in a basement was obvious by the dust, boxes, and stairs which only led up. The hole in the floor that the two men followed him up through was apparently usually covered by a cast-iron hinged door that Sprague and Walter had managed to force open. The pipe continued to rise up until it merged into the ceiling above. Soon they were all standing, dripping but alive. I'm sorry about the case, Isaac said to Bob at last. Bob shrugged. How was I going to get it up that pipe anyways? Besides, he pulled an object from beneath his shirt, wrapped in oilcloth from the outside of the case. At least we still have this. He unfolded it gently and revealed Tesla's journal, still dry. Oh, and I've got this. He pulled the green piece of glass, framed in thin brass, from his pocket. Please, Heinlein gave his shoulder a graceful squeeze. Thank God, Sprague said. Thank Foo-Foo, Ron corrected him. After surviving the adventure of the past few hours, it seemed funny to Isaac that they stood clustered around the door at the top of the stairs, knocking politely, waiting for the surprised custodian to open it. They offered no explanation as they sloshed past him into the lobby of 2 Fifth Avenue, the great arch towering over Washington Square Park, visible just outside the doors. Well, Walter Gibson said, the village. I'm practically home. That's convenient. Exhausted, they followed him across the lobby, still barely able to place one foot in front of the other, heading for what warmth the setting sun could provide, each of them ignoring the merry burbling of cold, clear waters cascading from the top of the large Art Deco fountain standing in the middle of the floor. That's it.